today's video I'm going to be doing a little story time and just a sit down chat video. So I'm sure you can tell by the title of my video of what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm hoping it's not going to be too long. I just wanted to go over a couple of things of Mila's recent medical changes, a few appointments that we've had, and just I was a little bit back and forth of actually the idea of filming this video just because of this scary experience that we had experienced with Mila having multiple febrile seizures on Monday. So I did want to bring it up though, just because it is very common in young children. So I just wanted to sit down and talk about it and go over a bit of our little story of what happened with poor Mila. So it basically had all started with after the long weekend, Easter long weekend, we saw some family. A few of us had recently gotten sick right afterwards, so we were notified when some family members had been sick. So Santiago ended up catching a fever back on last Tuesday, so just after the long weekend. So he was sick all last week. Basically, when he was sick, we ended up bringing Mila down to Andre's mom's house so that his grandmother can watch her for us so that she wasn't gonna catch a cold, just basically because since she is still so little, I didn't want her catching any type of cold because there's not much that you can give infants. So we did that just to be a little bit cautious. I started then getting a cold. I had all the symptoms of just your typical cold and everything as well. So I was sick all last week and I have basically just been getting over my cold. So I'm still a little bit, I guess, congested and my voice sounds a little different still, so I'm still definitely getting over it. And then Santiago, his cold was really not that long lasting, so it pretty much went away. Basically, after that, this Monday, Mila started getting a really high fever. So I had both babies at home around... You gonna chit chat? Yeah. So around noon on Monday, Mila started to get a high fever, so I was monitoring it all day. I started giving her Tylenol around noon. She was eating her bottles all completely normal. She was fine. Other than the night before, she was up quite often the night before with her teething symptoms, so I was waking up at least every 2 hours with her at that point, so she didn't really sleep that well the night before, but yeah. And then on Monday, the next day, then she was getting her fever and everything. So I kind of thought that maybe she was going to be getting sick with what Santiago had, just because of her fever was a little bit hard to control. Gave her Tylenol at noon, and then around, she was due for another feeding shortly after. So I tried feeding her. She didn't want to eat. Her temperature, I was putting cold cloths on her head just to keep her a little bit cooler since she was getting really warm. She was still she was reading anywhere between 38.2 and up to 39 something, so throughout the whole day. So I was monitoring her. She started to not eat as much, so that was obviously worrying me. And then by her next dose for the Tylenol, which was around 4, she wasn't really still eating anything. She still was pushing her bottles away when I was trying to feed her. I couldn't really get her fever down much, so around earlier in the day I did try giving her a cooler bath just to see if that would help drop her temperature, and it still really didn't. It did for maybe like 15 minutes. What's wrong? You just want to sit and talk? I know. So we tried that. She had a couple of doses of Tylenol throughout the day. Then later on in the evening, it was a lot later. We didn't give her Tylenol until around, I think it was around maybe 9:30ish before we were gonna go through our regular nighttime routine. We gave her her bottle and all of that. She actually tried eating her bottle at that point in the evening. So I gave her her bottle and downstairs here on the couch, and she ended up, not long after feeding her, she drank almost half of it, a little less, and she ended up projectile vomiting all over the place of her bottle that she had just had. So I brought her upstairs to grab her blankets and all, just to get her a little bit more comfortable and just rest. And she ended up she wanted a little bit more, so I gave her a little bit more milk. Then she started to spit up a little bit more. When she was sitting down, she started to make really weird hand movements, which at first I kind of had a weird feeling of questioning if she was starting to have a seizure, because she does have hand tremors here and there when she's playing, but not just when she's sitting there, right? So she was a little bit out of it then. She started doing weird hand tremors, so I told Andre, I was like, that's really not normal. I think there's something wrong, right? So we were like, okay, like let's go get her ready. We're gonna bring her straight to the hospital. So I bring her downstairs. I laid her on the couch for a little bit with Andre. I grabbed all of her, like a bag ready to go to the hospital, grabbed a bunch of stuff. And he went and started the car for me. At this point, Santiago was already sleeping. So we just left him sleeping. Andre was going to stay behind. I was just going to go and just get her looked at for her fever at that point. And then she just turned completely out of nowhere and got even worse. So basically, at that point, she ended up, I had already put her in her car seat to get her ready to go because I was about to leave the house. The car was started. I had everything ready. So I had her in her car seat. She then starts to vomit again, even more. And then she started to have a bit of a stronger seizure. So I quickly unbuckled her. I looked at Andre and I was like, we need to call an ambulance because these are getting a lot more serious now. So at that point, I'm on the phone with the paramedic, or I called 911 to get the ambulance here. They asked a bunch of questions. Is she still in a seizure and like all of that? Basically, this was around 9:30 at night when I had to, when she first started having her seizures. And then not long after that, we ended up starting, so it was probably within like a half an hour later of her starting to have more seizures. So I took her out of her car seat chair. She had soaked all of her, oh, it's okay. Shh, shh, shh. It's okay. Here. It's okay. And then she had soaked, basically her onesie was covered. She had thrown up all over her car seat. So I took her out and I brought her over to the couch. And they said, like, just lay her on her side if she's still throwing up and just be really close to her, basically. So we did that and they said, call us if anything changes. So a couple minutes go by, she starts to throw up again. As soon as I instantly laid her down, she just started to projectile vomit again. She went into having another seizure, and at this point, like, Andre and I, we started getting really scared. I was getting a bit emotional at that time because it was just really scary how little she is and everything, and just how fast she changed. So since she started having more seizures, we ended up calling them again just to see and let them know that she went back into another seizure. She's throwing up, seeing like how close up the ambulance was. They weren't far down from the road from us at that point, so they said they're gonna be here really soon. At that time, it was closer to 10:30 when we got her in the ambulance and on the way. They did bring their equipment in the house and got her hooked up to oxygen and just looked at her for a bit until they got the ambulance all set up, and then we took her. I went in the ambulance at first with her, and then Andre stayed back with Santiago since he was sleeping until we can get his mom to come up and come watch, like stay at the house with Santiago, and then Andre was going to come meet me there. Because at this point, they still don't allow, obviously, siblings in the emergency room, and it's also just something that he doesn't need to see. So we did that. I was at the ambulance ride was really quick, about maybe 20 minutes away from the hospital, but they definitely rushed us there really fast because she was starting to, even in the ambulance, she was strapped onto a little stretcher, like in the head rest and everything, and she kept going in and out of seizures, and they were getting a little bit worse. So at the house, she was starting to do the hand tremors and her arms were starting to go a little bit more. But then by the time we got into the ambulance, her jaw started to grind back and forth. She was chewing her tongue, and they said that was a common thing when seizures come on. So she was doing all of those. It's okay. You go have a nap? She's tired. Yeah, you're tired. And then when we got into the hospital, they rushed us into one of the rooms, and we had a lot of staff coming and working on her. So I believe there was at least, I'll be right back. I just put Mila down for her nap there, so I'm just gonna finish her the story. So basically once we did get to the emergency room, they brought her straight in because she was still in and out of having a lot of seizures. I think at this point she must have had almost like 13 seizures back to back. They were getting a little bit longer as well the more that she was having them, so they were obviously really concerned. So we got into the emergency room. They had a lot of doctors. I'm pretty sure everyone just stopped what they were doing to come and help her since she's only 9 months old. There was at least, I want to say, 6 or 7 people surrounded around the bed, and I kind of, when I walked in, I just stayed to the side because I didn't know if I was going to be in the way. The doctor was with the computer and asking all these questions, and the paramedics were still there and everything, so they were working on her for quite a while. We were in the emergency room for, I don't even know, I think because we were in the ambulance, or I know around 10:30, and then they got her into emergency and gave her medications for the seizures to stop. They did a ton of blood work, just hooked her up to basically all the machines that they had to do and were working on her. She started to, they gave her a lot of dosage of medicine just to calm her down and sedate her a little bit, so that what they were doing wasn't going to be, you know, like she wasn't going to be too awake and too alert with everything. So she was already really limping out of it, I found, since when she started going into the seizures. She just had zero energy. She was pretty much just almost like went gray. Like she was really, really sick. The doctor did say that when we got there, like she was really not well, and they had to keep kind of shaking her too and like rubbing her sternum, because one of the nurses said that she stopped breathing at one point a little bit because of the medication, and she was just so out of it and stuff. So they, yeah, did a lot of work at the time there, just getting her back to stabilize her and everything. I believe it was around, it took about an hour, I think, in the emergency room for them to get everything all down until they were happy with how she was basically stabilizing and how she was doing. And then after that, they did basically walk us through everything and just say that she was admitted at that point. We were staying the night. They wanted to do further testing in the morning, so by the next morning they wanted to do a brain ECG, so they hooked up a bunch of little monitors on her brain the next day. So they did that. They kept us overnight just to make sure that she wasn't gonna have any seizures. Then by the next day we did the ECG first thing in the morning, and they basically said at that point that everything seemed to be okay. They do believe that her seizures were caused by the febrile seizure, which is just a high, when your fever goes, it just spikes so high out of nowhere that basically it causes you to have seizures. So I looked it up also because they said it's very common, and I have heard of them before. And it basically just says it's common, so it's around every 1 in 20 children will have this, and it is occurred for children anyway, any ages from 6 months to 3 years old. So it's very common to have this. So I definitely just wanted to put a video out there as well, just to be aware of this as well, of these type of seizures, because it can literally happen to anybody. Even though Mila does have her brain abnormality and she is a bit more prone to having seizures, she hasn't had them before at all. So this is just a complete random spike that she had with this seizure. So she's definitely doing a lot better now. We sent Santiago the next day down to Andre's mom's house, so he's still there, and today's actually Thursday, so he's been there since Tuesday in the afternoon. And then Andre came back to the hospital to see me and Mila. So they basically, when we were in the hospital, like we went up to the maternity ward, they had Mila still hooked up to her IV and everything. She basically, I had her in a bassinet, a crib right beside the bed, and then I had a little hospital bed. Mila got released from the hospital on Tuesday afternoon. After staying over that night, she didn't have any more seizures, so the medication they gave her helped stop the seizures that she was having. They did also prescribe medication just for an emergency if she starts having seizures again for a longer period of time. So she's not going to be started on any other seizure medications daily as of right now, but just for an emergency we have one prescribed, so that we'll have that on us at all times just in case it's needed. And yeah, she's been doing really good ever since. We're back home. She's healthy again, happy, and she's not really showing any other signs of a cold other than just having the fever that day. So yeah, I just wanted to go over the febrile seizures and just how common it is. They did also say since she's had them before, it is more likely that she's gonna continue to have them eventually. So that's a little bit scary. At least we do know what to look out for the type of seizures that she had. So as of right now, everything has been good. Other than that, Santiago's still down at his down at Andre's mom's house. So hopefully by tomorrow, which is Friday, we'll all be back home together and get to enjoy the weekend together and stuff. So I'm hoping that everybody else had a really good week, and I hope that this also helped maybe inform a couple of other parents with young children that may not have heard of these type of seizures. So I just wanted to definitely put that out there. And yeah, everyone at home right now is pretty much happy, healthy, we're doing good, and I'm really glad that Mila is doing a lot better. So that's pretty much it for today's video. I'll definitely film a bit more over the weekend once all of us are back together. And that is it for today's video. So I hope that this video was a little bit informative for anybody watching. I hope you got some information out of this video. It was definitely a little bit of a scary experience for us, but I did just want to share just to help other people, just to be aware of and how common that these seizures can be for young children. So, and I will catch you on my next one. Take care. Bye.